Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
With recent events in the space industry spotlight grabbing all the headlines, things like the first launch of SpaceX's Starship to orbit, Artemis and the return to the moon, private space stations from Blue Origin, Think Orbital, and Axiom, we tend to forget about the tech and services behind it all, making it all work. Greg Porter is Senior Systems Architect at Sev1Tech. The company provides IT modernization, cybersecurity, cloud, engineering, fielding, training, and program support services for U.S. government agencies and major commercial organizations. Greg, welcome to the program.
Hey, Tom. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be joining you.
That is quite a list of things that you do. So tell us about Sev1Tech. Let's start with IT services for the government and private sector companies. What does that entail?
Sure. Yeah, we'd love to talk about that. So what we have at Sev1Tech, we call digital transformation services. And under this, we actually have 7 main competencies. And I'll do my best to try to describe them here. So we have IT modernization. And this is items like enterprise architecture, network engineering operations, and data transport as a service. And then we have cloud, which covers things like cloud strategy, application modernization, migration, managed services. And then we cover DevSecOps, so application development, continuous integration, continuous deployment, pipeline automation, security and quality enforcement. We cover data ops, which is things like data management solutions, enterprise data governance and security. We also cover artificial intelligence and machine learning, where we provide predictive insights and various artificial intelligence and machine learning based solutions for our customers. And we cover security and cyber protection, which is items like security architecture, engineering, vulnerabilities, assessment and mitigation, zero trust design, and implementation. And finally is digital engineering, which I think is probably what we're going to be spending most of our time today talking about, because this covers things like model-based systems engineering, digital thread design, development and implementation, as well as digital twin and augmented reality.
So we'll get to that in a little bit, but I do want to talk first of all about space operations services. What are those? And do they pose unique challenges because of the space commerce industry?
Right. So some of the space operations services that we offer are systems engineering and integration, training and readiness, and mission and program support. And I would like to say that companies like Sev1Tech are able to provide solutions because we are the space commerce industry. Where we encounter challenges is in trying to get the government customers to clearly define their requirements and the customers being able to secure the necessary funding for what they need. So oftentimes we have solutions, but they come with a price tag that the customers cannot afford. So we work within the parameters of the statement of work, or sometimes it comes out under a performance work statement. And we do everything we can to find cost-efficient solutions to try our best to bridge that gap between the mission requirements and the funding.
Talk a little bit about your background, Greg. How did you get into it?
Yeah, so glad you asked. I actually recently had an interview done that was a story of how I got here, because my background is a bit unique. So taking kind of way back, back in high school even, my mom was actually a technology teacher, and I did everything I possibly could to avoid taking her classes. And I said, no way am I going into technology. And then, fast forward a few years, I was working at a furniture store, and they said, hey, we need someone to set up a network for us. And I was like, well, I kind of grew up around technology. I can give it a shot. And then incidentally fell in love. So went and got a whole bunch of degrees and certifications and started my career path. And my career path has gone from everything from setting up infrastructure to working in cloud computing environments to data science and artificial intelligence. And now it has kind of transitioned into building and developing digital threads and digital twins.
So is a lot of the work that you do focused on space, or are you more of a general government contractor, or do you work with a lot of other industries besides space?
So Sev1Tech as a company, Tom, does a lot across the government and commercial partners supporting the government. And in the position I'm in the company, I do float a lot between contracts. So while I do work a good bit in the space industry, I also support other contracts that might be like Department of Defense type contracts as well.
Tell us a little bit about your team. Who works with you and what do they do?
Yeah, so our team, and I'll say specifically for the digital twin and digital thread efforts, we're actually partnered up with Louisiana State University. And we're very happy to have this partnership. That team consists of 3 different professors. And right now we have about 12 grad students working on the team. And I do want to make a special call out to a couple of those professors at LSU. We've got Mark Abenel, who is the director of digital media arts and engineering, and actually used to be the director for the video game FIFA, which is a soccer video game. So we're super happy that he's on our team and he's able to help us out on building these digital twins. And then we also have Derek Ostrinko, who's an associate professor of the School of Art and Center for Computation and Technology. So we're partnered with LSU. And then on the Sev1Tech side, we have a really diverse team with backgrounds kind of all over the place, because it really takes a large team of people to make this kind of work happen. So we've got people that are skilled in model-based systems engineering, 3D modeling, graphic artists, specific engineers like manufacturing engineers. We've got 3D laser scannings, people that solely focus on cloud computing, and then even areas of DevSecOps as well.
A lot of what you do is for the military. So give us a little bit of information about what kinds of challenges it brings to work in that kind of environment.
Sure. So one of the big challenges that we're seeing right now in the military is the current strains on the infrastructure, because that infrastructure is nearing obsolescence. We're seeing increased demands for real-time information that needs to flow to multiple end users concurrently. And of course, with that is more and more data storage and processing needs. One of the big challenges too is working in the military space, especially, is the classification. And COVID-19 kind of changed the way everybody works. And now we have a lot of remote work. People want to work remotely, but that also is a significant challenge when you're trying to fill classified work, because oftentimes those require people to be on site. So it is giving us new challenges in that field of trying to staff classified work.
You mentioned the digital twin and the digital thread capabilities. What are you hearing from NASA regarding the use of those technologies?
Yeah, so when it comes to NASA and digital thread and digital twin, NASA plays a huge role in that. And in order to frame that in, let me first talk about a gentleman named John Vickers. So John Vickers is the director for the NASA division called National Center for Advanced Manufacturing, or NCAM for short. You'll hear a lot of people use the word NCAM. And if you look John up on the internet, he's actually credited with coining the term digital twin. And he is actually our direct customer for the digital twin work that we're doing at the Michoud Assembly Facility for NASA. The concept of digital twin is more commonly described in reference to a product or developing a digital equivalent of a physical object from concept design to production and through its life cycle. So in our case, we're developing a digital twin of the production facility for the NASA Artemis program, which incorporates things like the core stage rocket, exploration upper stage, and the Orion crew capsule, as well as many other tenants on the Michoud Assembly Facility campus. And some of the goals with the digital twin work for NASA are to improve the efficiency and quality of maintaining the facility and managing the needs of the NASA programs, which ultimately leads to decreased downtimes, improved communication, and decreased costs.
So when you say basically a digital copy, for those of us who might not kind of understand what that technology means, are you talking about like virtual reality where somebody can go and walk through a facility or do something of that nature without actually having to physically be on site?
That's exactly right. So it's actually even a little bit more than that with the work that we're doing. So while we do have that option of a virtual reality option from your computer or wherever you are, you can log into the digital twin and you can see a digital copy of the Michoud assembly facility. And we feed real-time information from that facility back into the digital twin. So you're able to get that real-time information from really anywhere in the world. But also it overlays it is augmented with augmented reality. So things like a Microsoft HoloLens. So the worker out on the floor, they can actually put on the HoloLens and they can see virtual items overlaid into their real space, which is super helpful when they're working on tasks and they can see work instructions right in front of them. And it even interacts with the person using the desktop model remotely, so that if there's an engineer at a different site, they can actually draw into the technician's environment, so that technician can see a drawing or something highlighted in their physical space.
And then let's delve a little bit deeper into the digital thread as well, because again, it's a concept that I'm not familiar with. So explain that to us in at least somewhat layman's terms.
Sure. Yeah. So the best way I like to think about a digital thread is it's like a highway for your data systems. A digital thread is able to connect all of your disparate systems, regardless of what they are. It could be like a requirements database or a project management tool, or even the software downstream that somebody's working on, or architectural drawings, you name it, it can go in the digital thread. And that digital thread really exposes the relationships of all of your data across your entire organization, which gives you that full holistic view. So with a digital thread, you're actually able to understand how something from a requirements database, if a requirement change, you can see everything that touches downstream of that requirement and fully understand exactly what is affected by that. But furthermore, Tom, we actually say that you can't have an effective digital twin without the digital thread, because we use that digital thread as like the authoritative truth, and we feed the information from the digital thread into the digital twin. So that real-time information that you're seeing from the digital twin, it's coming directly from the digital thread.
So then how does digital thread and digital twin technology address challenges like training and production speed and quality control, problem prediction, cost and complexity, all those things that are really important for aerospace systems?
Sure. So let's start with training. So, it can offer a suite of capabilities to improve personnel training and job preparation. And that could be, as we talked about, the twin could be available at your desk, or it can be available in the field to supplement on the job training. It can provide access to, online tooling or machinery manuals, training documentation. You can also overlay canned videos that demonstrate production or maintenance or repair steps right into your environment. And this can also potentially lead to machinery simulators that can track how an operator performs with a piece of equipment in real life scenarios, with curveballs thrown at them to see how they react to unexpected situation. And then you asked about work processes as well. So work processes are tied into a unified system. So workers always have the latest updates and changes, which come directly from that link to the digital thread. And this allows for faster production with less error rates. And then also, if we can kind of continue with your question there, the sensors provide live feedback on machine operation as well. So then we can even tie in things like predictive AI that can sense when problems may arise and prompt crews to perform maintenance or alerts when something needs to be replaced.
I'm talking with Greg Porter, Senior Systems Architect at Sev1Tech. Take a moment right now to click subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of our podcasts, or if you're watching on YouTube, any of the videos from Ex Terra, the Journal of Space Commerce. Greg, as a private sector company, you work with other companies like Maxar, GOI, Amazon Web Services. Are there synergies to this, and could the government actually do this without you?
So, Tom, engineering process improvements truly are universal, whether it's private sector or direct government work. And in the face of ever-present budget and scheduling challenges, adopting things like model-based systems engineering and digital twin practices, along with the collaborative venue such as a digital thread, cost and schedule efficiencies can be realized that are beneficial to both the government and the private sectors. And to your question, if the government could actually do this without us, I think I'd have to say no, because it takes someone with significant experience with a particular disruptive technology, along with traditional knowledge and skills, to really lead the paradigm shift that's needed.
Can the cloud-based services be as secure as dedicated data centers? And then kind of expand on that with cybersecurity.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that cloud-based services are getting there, but they're not quite there yet. As time goes on, we see expansions of Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure in the impact level 5 and up spaces. And those impact levels are the classifications of the data within the government space. And we see more and more cloud services are also getting FedRAMP approved, which is the way the government approves if a service can be used at a certain level of classification or not. And we also see both Azure and particularly AWS also now offer impact level 6 services, which those are rated for secret information. So they are catching up, but they're not quite there yet. But there is significant investment and work being put into those technologies to eventually get them. And then, tying it back to NASA, most of NASA operates at an impact level 5 or under. So we're definitely seeing a large adoption of cloud services throughout the organization.
When you talk about impact level 5, what does that mean?
Impact level 5 is considered confidential, unclassified information, or CUI for short. So this is not quite secret level information, so you don't have to have a secret clearance to access it, but it is restricted data. So it's not commercially available to people. You have to be contracting with NASA or whichever government agency is using that data to actually get access to the data.
I'm sitting here thinking about all of the cloud-based computing that is moving to space. There's a lot of talk about space-based servers and laser communication, those kinds of things. Where is your company on the road to preparing for that kind of computer technology and doing those security things that are going to be needed as that milieu grows?
So Sev1Tech is actually partners with AWS. We are a platinum partner with them. So we are very active in the cloud community. And we're also very active in cybersecurity. Being a government contracting company, we have a lot of cybersecurity experts within the company. So cybersecurity is not necessarily my expertise,
sure,
but I can confidently say that we are keeping up with those technologies and that we are ready to support our customers when it comes to cybersecurity.
You mentioned something about this a little bit earlier. I kind of want to roll back to it because a lot of industries are concerned about having skilled employees, and IT is a skill-intensive industry, as I'm sure you're well aware. So are you having problems getting skilled workers? And over the next 5 to 10 years, do you think that's going to continue to be a problem?
Right. So what I can tell you, Tom, is that Sev1Tech is investing a lot of money and effort into training employees. So we offer employees access to an extensive catalog of courses through a program called Percipio. And we also provide paid opportunities to take training for industry certifications and encourage everyone to seek professional certs. And this really kind of goes into a program that we have that we call Maximum Potential, Minimum Experience. And the idea behind this program is to hire candidates with the maximum potential at the minimum requirements for that position. So think of it as an effort to regreen the workforce, so to speak. Now, this doesn't mean that we only look for younger candidates, and it's quite the opposite, actually. We have hired many previously retired people that qualify under the guidelines of the maximum potential, minimum experience due to their salary requirements. And the ultimate goal for the program is to mature people over time by providing training assistance and access to subject matter experts. So the use of this program, Tom, has really helped us tap into people, like coming straight out of school, or maybe they've switched careers at some point and they're not asking the higher salaries that you might see, especially in commercial space, because, as we all know, the companies out there like Meta and Google, they're offering salaries that often we can't compete as government contractors because the government just doesn't have the kind of salary caps on their contracts. So we have to get a little creative in how we go about hiring. I do think the trend is probably going to continue over the next 5 to 10 years, especially as we talked about earlier with classified environments and people wanting to work from home and work remotely, and they like having that freedom. So that is an ongoing challenge on trying to staff those sensitive areas.
Of course, with the number of layoffs that are coming in the tech sector, you may be getting some of those Meta and Google employees to come and find a job with you for maybe a little bit less than they were making before.
That is true. And I think too, we have to play a little bit on people's emotions, because with the commercial field, while you might be making some really high salaries, do you truly believe in the mission that you're working towards? Where when you're working for the government and things like NASA and getting people to the moon and Mars, it's exciting and it's things that people can be really passionate about and they can really get behind. So oftentimes we do see people willing to take a little bit less of a salary just because they want to be part of that history.
When you talk about minimum qualifications, what is kind of your baseline?
So that very much depends on the contract and the specific items within that contract. So government contracts will lay out labor categories with very specific requirements. And so you have to meet what those minimums are per that labor category. But if we can find people that meet those minimum requirements that aren't asking for large salaries, that's really where we're looking for that maximum potential minimum experience. Instead of filling someone, with a requirement of 5 years and we go out and capture somebody that has 10 years, we really try to stick more to that 5-year mark.
The pace of innovation is growing exponentially, as is evidenced by almost everything that we do, from our cell phones to computer technology. So what do you see in store for IT over the next decade or so? And is AI a factor in your business? Do you anticipate it to be if it's not?
Yeah, so great question. And it is a very exciting time to be working in IT. It seems with each passing year, more and more innovative ideas that only operated as small proof of concepts, or maybe were reserved for the largest of companies like the Metas and the Googles with the nearly unlimited budgets, they're becoming mainstream. And we saw this very often. Everyone's favorite buzzword right now is artificial intelligence, and more specifically generative AI. So think Chat GPT, a term just a few months ago no one had even heard of.
Exactly.
And then overnight, it actually became the fastest user adopted technology of all time. I believe it was something like over the course of 2 months, it reached roughly 100 million active monthly users. And so that's posing a challenge to companies now, where they're trying to figure out how they can use it. In the government space, they're very valid security concerns, and so they're outlining if they should use it. Or you have companies saying, well, how do we compete with that? So another buzzword you talk about real quickly too is DevSecOps, and we talked about DevSecOps just at a very high level earlier. And that has seen slower adoption as to compared to something like ChatGPT, but then again, what hasn't? But we see DevSecOps as a requirement on almost every single contract we work. And DevSecOps, just to give a little bit of background for those that may not be familiar, it's the practice of automating and integrating security testing at every stage of the software development process. So I think what these trends will tell us is that companies and IT professionals really value automation over just about anything else. And I think over the next decade, the industry will embed AI into just about every product, while also being hyper-focused on automating everything to ensure product releases happen faster and more securely. And Tom, you asked, as a company, is AI a factor in our business? I talked about ChatGPT and how it's impossible to ignore that kind of technology with the amount of buzz it has, the impacts that people are having from it. So AI is definitely a factor in our business, and we actually support quite a few contracts that have AI within them, and we're building out those custom machine learning models for the government. And then to tie that back into a digital twin, we actually tie AI into the digital twin itself. So that's where we're linking back to those sensors, where we're gathering sensor data over time, and we can start making predictions of maintenance needs on equipment within a factory or an environment before something actually breaks. We can tell through that sensor collection and machine learning that you need to go fix this machine or replace this part because you're about to have an outage.
You talk about the pace of technology change, and it was not that long ago that I was one of the people that was building the first website for C-SPAN. And we were so thrilled to get a T1 circuit into the office as opposed to using dial-up. And of course, now you get much more bandwidth delivered to your house at a fraction of the cost.
That's right.
It's just amazing how fast that goes. Got just a couple of more questions, Greg, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how you assess the future of aerospace technology for NASA and the commercial space industry as the demand for systems capabilities evolved. Does that increase daily?
Yeah, so NASA and commercial ventures are always going to have technical challenges of venturing further out into space. And the more critical component to this, tying back to a digital twin, is to decrease the cost and delivery times of the vehicles needed to complete the space program missions. So a digital twin and digital thread allows a product or manufacturing process to be analyzed from multiple perspectives while including the non-siloed information. So as the systems evolve, having more data at your fingertips allows for better decision-making.
We're just about out of time, but we ask this question of all of our guests, so you don't get off the hook. So I want you to look out over the next 10 to 15 years, Greg, if you would, in space commerce and the role of Sev1Tech, and tell me what you see.
Yeah, so I see an increased speed and evolution of technology and the iteration of design and desire. Over time, as we learn more of how to accomplish things, it'll grow our desire to do more and to explore more venues that we haven't even dreamed of yet. And by continuously leveraging technologies available to meet our customers' unique challenges and needs, and to build off, the previous question, the benefits realized through utilizing something like a digital twin, it can lead to broader implementations of systems that have never been integrated before. So, further development of training and work instruction content, especially as augmented reality technology improves to increase the complexity of information that can be displayed and the accuracy of capturing the real world environment. This translates to improvements in aligning the virtual display, and it also helps build that new era of the workforce over the next 10 or 15 years. As we see that workforce aging and looking to retirement, we really have to look and see how can we attract the up and coming talent and pull them maybe out of the commercial places like SpaceX or Blue Origin and get them more focused on what NASA's goals are.
Greg Porter is Senior Systems Architect at Sev1Tech. Greg, it's been an interesting conversation. Thanks for joining me today.
Tom, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
That's going to do it for this edition of the Ex Terra Podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version of the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Audible, and many other popular podcasting platforms. Be sure to click on subscribe so you don't miss an episode of the podcast or any of our other videos. You can also get daily space commerce news at xterrajsc.com. And one thing more, be sure to connect with us on LinkedIn and follow us on Twitter at xterrajsc. Until next time, I'm Tom Patton. Thanks for joining us.
I wanna go faster, faster. Hands in the air, we're gonna crash. Searching for the answers. My Galileo, the through is looking glass. Thirst for reason. Our dreamer's eyes we gaze into a sense of purpose, know my view. Like finding water on the moon.